See, the next presentation will be conducted by Manikandan Venkatramanan, and he'll be introducing the speaker also. Manikandan is a very active member of the Rail Enthusiast Society. Amongst other things, he's a voracious reader and collector of books on many disciplines, particularly the history of railroading, rail technology, and management, locomotives and signaling. He is a graduate in finance from the University of Pittsburgh and an FRM charter holder, having imparted conceptual training to professionals in finance. His hobbies include exploring railway sites and sharing knowledge of railway history. He is particularly interested in history, philosophical, religious symbolism of ancient temples dating from 7th century to 13th century in India, Cambodia, and Indonesia. His other interests include exploring the cultural heritage of India, Indian and Greek philosophy, Indian classical music, military and industrial history, with special reference to the United States. You can see that he's a man of many parts. He is currently employed in a senior position by an MNC. He is also the director of WATTRAIN and represents India. He represents India for this organization. Over to you, Mani.
Thank you very much, Mr. Singh. I hope I'm audible to every one of you here.
Yeah, yes, you are.
Thank you. So first of all, I would like to express my thanks to RES for giving us this splendid opportunity to talk about railway museums and WATTRAIN's wider role pertaining to the same. And I would like to extend a very warm welcome to Mr. Stefano Benazzo. So we were talking about the Italian Queen. So we do have an Italian here, and we are going to cover some royalty as well. And he has graciously consented to talk about different railway museums all around the world, and also an emphasis on WATTRAIN. Thank you very much, Stefano, for accepting our invite. It gives me great pleasure, and it's an honor to introduce Stefano, who is the current president of WATTRAIN, which is an acronym for the World Alliance of Tourist Trams and Trains. Some details pertaining to our organization would be provided by him during his speech. After a brief stint as a journalist for a US-based TV network, he shifted to being a career diplomat. He has 4 decades of experience in the Italian diplomatic corps, and among his varied achievements, he has served as the ambassador of Italy to Belarus and Bulgaria. He is proficient in multiple languages, being Italian, French, English, German, and Spanish, and serves as a valuable member of the Italian Federation of Tourist and Museum Railways. Yeah. Among his different interests, which I was mentioning, he has a passion for photography of stranded shipwrecks, and he has captured around 450 shipwrecks spread over 20 countries. And he typically fuses the Italian artisan and craftsmanship skills. He is proficient in sculpture making made of wood, marble, and bronze. And he devotes his time to building architectural models of churches, mosques, synagogues, and also boat ships, cars, and motorcycles. He has participated in multiple exhibitions, solo and collective, and he has published many books and articles as well as catalogs. And he is the recipient of many awards. Stefano will begin with an introduction about WATTRAIN, and he will give us a tour of railway museums around the world with a focus on select museums in Europe, North America, etc. So, Stefano, over to you. And before you begin, let me just try sharing my screen, and I hope it will be visible.
Hello, everybody. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, and the screen is being shared very well.
Good. Good afternoon, good morning, wherever you are. I am Stefano Benazzo. Mr. President, Mr. Secretary, thank you for inviting me to attend the conference and giving me the possibility to offer some remarks. Dear Manikandan, knowing you very well through your activity as member of the board of directors of WATTRAIN, I am very happy that you will be the moderator. Welcome to all the rail enthusiasts attending online. I appreciated Mr. Mukherjee's remarks a few minutes ago about the presence of Italian engineers, the Paganini brothers, to build the Margherita Bridge named after a Queen of Italy. Congratulations for the Tinsukia Museum. I would say that it is really an example for heritage rail museums all over the world, not only in India. Let me start first with a few remarks about WATTRAIN, the World Alliance of Tourist Trams and Trains. WATTRAIN was founded in 2010 as a worldwide organization to promote the interests of the owners and operators of heritage and tourist trains and trams. We wish to be recognized globally as an organization that ensures heritage rail is valued and sustained. Our aims are basically A, to represent the interests of such operators on a global scale. B, to advise and assist its members on technical, legal, environmental, cultural, commercial, marketing matters. C, to exchange ideas and information. D, to encourage best practices and to promote the sector generally. I skipped many other aims, but I wish to mention WATTRAIN's central one, to promote heritage rail conservation on the basis of the Riga Charter. WATTRAIN seeks to ensure that traditional skills are passed on to the next generation, and WATTRAIN has also been working to promote the continued use of coal in steam locomotives. Because of the worldwide dispersal of its members, maximum use is made of the internet. In pre-COVID times, WATTRAIN held an international conference every third year, the majority of which held in railway museums, of course, to provide, to address topical issues or to update technical developments of interest to tram and or trolley or train operators, and to provide a great opportunity to network with colleagues and suppliers from overseas. The most recent conferences were in Japan in 2015 and in Texas in 2018. WATTRAIN is registered in the UK. It publishes a monthly newsletter and owns a site, www.wattrain.net, which offers a business directory and many useful links. Also, WATTRAIN held many online forums during the COVID years, very useful to keep as many stakeholders as possible in touch with each other. WATTRAIN signed a memorandum of understanding with the Union Internationale des Chemins de Fer, UIC. Among its members are the Federation of Heritage Rail Entities in Europe, FedEcrail, the Heritage Rail Association in UK, the New Europe Rail Heritage Trust covering Eastern and Central Europe, the Heritage Rail Association of North America, the Association of Tourist and Heritage Railways of Australia, ATHRA, and many other entities and individuals around the world. Our values. Persistent, we are committed to ensuring the sector is sustainable. Transparent, our activities are totally transparent and open for review at all times. Non-partisan, our organization operates independently and is free from any political, religious, or other affiliations. Culturally considerate, we uphold and advocate the intrinsic importance of culture. Dynamic, we continuously innovate to meet the changing needs of our members. Respectful, we recognize that all members are unique and we value their differences. Finally, passionate. We pursue our goals and passion, drive, and an open heart. So this is what I wanted to say about WATTRAIN. You are, of course, welcome to visit our site, to get in touch with us, to become members, either individuals or entities, to receive our newsletter, and to contribute to whatever we are trying to do to enhance and protect our passion. I would like now to talk about railway museums, which is in fact the central topic of my remarks. So railway museums around the world. What is a prominent railway museum? According to Wikipedia, a railway museum is a museum that explores the history of all aspects of rail-related transportation, including locomotives, steam, diesel, and electric, railway cars, trams, and railway signaling equipment. They may also operate historic equipment on museum grounds. There is an incredible number of railway museums around the world. I estimate the most important ones to be at least 500. Of course, some countries have more than others. The following estimates of the number of museums in some countries based on Wikipedia lists are largely by default. USA 210, UK 70, Germany 70, Sweden 25, India 15, Japan 14, Australia 14. Many more are elsewhere in Asia, Africa, Europe. The inclusion in the lists depends from the capacity of the national associations to disseminate information thereon and on the diverse parameters used to define an HR museum. I will mention just some of them. My choice is arbitrary and does not imply in any way a judgment about them or the ones omitted. The members of the WATTRAIN board stem from different countries and continents. If needed, I will be happy to forward the inquiries of the public concerning specific museums to our directors. Most rail museums offer a live steam experience. Additionally, they tend to focus on railway and the community. That way, their museum appeals to a wider audience, especially families and women. Please keep in mind that museums operate to different standards in different parts of the world. I would like now to draw from the vast experience of my good friend Jaap Nieweeg, the president of the Federation of Heritage Rail Entities in Europe. I agree on its concepts, on the concepts which follow, and I thank him for them. In some cases, the main goal of a heritage railway museum is to offer the experience of traveling as in the past. And structures and rolling stock tell stories about the role of that specific railway, about people working on the railway, using it, and those who finance it. And of course, about the technical developments and their influences on the areas that were served. Traditional rail museums are looking for public experiences as well in the old static environment as in working live approaches. But we might as well take a different but broader approach, starting from the first structural buildings and proceeding through a collection built from historical cultural elements, like, for example, the British National Collection as part of the British Science Museum and the York Museum. Moreover, there are examples of museums that are today closely connected to heritage rail activity as a great cultural and economic value. 3 examples. In Germany, the Harzer Schmalspurbahnen, HSB. In the UK, specifically on the Isle of Man, where some railways, tramways are in continuous use since 1873. In Wales, where working heritage railway really started some 75 years ago. Festiniog Railway is a good example. Those initiatives are to be valued for their continuity and their activities. They do not have as their prime goal earning money, but they deserve our full support because of their prime cultural values. The full support will, of course, be also stimulated by touristic, economical, educational, etc. values. I also wish to add that the backbone for continuity as the heritage rail sector, at least throughout Europe, is represented by about 3,500 full-time professionals, paid jobs. This sector would never have developed in this scale and in its cultural and economic values without their input and involvement. Obviously, they work hand in hand with about 50,000 non-paid volunteers. I forgot to say before that, of course, if there are any questions, Manikandam will be happy to gather them and I will try and answer. I will now pass to museums in Europe, if you agree. Being an Italian citizen, I will now take the liberty to mention 2 museums in Italy, which deserve special attention because of their unique historical significance. First one is the National Railway Museum of Pietrarsa, near Naples in Italy. A few kilometers south of Naples, in the town of Portici, birthplace of the Italian rail history, the Pietrarsa workshop preserves more than 50 locomotives, many carriages, and a number of exhibits. The National Railway Museum is located exactly at the point of arrival of the first railway built in Italy in October 1839, which was 7.4 kilometers long and connected Naples to Portici. The ancient Bourbonic workshops, whose construction started in 1840, are an example of industrial architecture. The 25 steam locomotives, the oldest one built in 1882, constitute a complete collection of the rolling stock used for decades in Italy. Through them and through the diesel and electric locos, the light rail cars and many carriages, we are brought back to the era when railways were the means of ground transportation. The museum is meant for everybody, non-professionals and experts, young and old. Visitors stare at the replica of the Bayard locomotive, which is the twin sister of the loco that made the maiden journey of the inaugural train Naples-Portici in 1839. Fans of railway history experience the emotion of standing at the foot of gigantic machines, perhaps polished and oiled. It is difficult not to identify oneself with the steam raisers, the firemen, the engine drivers, and the workers who repair the rolling stock. By the way, I thank Mani for offering us the views of the some of the places which I will mention, and specifically this replica of the Bayard loco, which is, of course, in Portici. Many visitors are flabbergasted when they discover how much the Italian rail industry was able to create. And when did it start? A peculiarity which makes Pietrarsa unique is the fact that the museum is located where the rolling stock was built and underwent repairs. The Pietrarsa railway station on the Naples-Salerno train line is indeed located inside the museum, facilitating, therefore, its access. The creator of the complex, King Ferdinando II, intended to disenfranchise his kingdom from the technological superiority of France and Germany in the fields of mechanics, shipbuilding, and rail. When it was completed in 1853, the Pietrarsa structure was the first industrial complex in Italy. Several hundred workers operated there. Hundreds of locomotives built their road for decades on the Italian network, like a number of carriages and trucks. Many so-called major repairs were carried over in Pietrarsa. The workshop operated until 1975, and the museum was inaugurated in 1989 in the 150th anniversary of the Naples-Portici First Railway. The complex was an example. Tsar Nicholas I of Russia ordered in 1845 to copy and reproduce it exactly in the new industrial complex of Kronstadt. And all of this happens in the enchanted scenario of the Gulf of Naples, with Capri, Ischia, and Procida on the horizon, the Sorrento Peninsula on the left, the Vesuvius looming over. I would like now to pass to another example in Italy. That's the train of His Holiness Pope Pius IX in Rome. In 1859, His Holiness Pope Pius IX was presented with 3 richly decorated railway carriages, presently exhibited in Rome in the Centrale Monte Martini Museum, one of the about 20 museums of the Italian capital. The carriages were built in France. Their construction lasted 8 months. They were transported by barges on French canals and rivers, then by ship to the harbor of Civitavecchia, then again by barges on the river Tiber. The papal train consists of 3 carriages, the most ancient rolling stock existing in Italy. The first is, in fact, a balcony loggia. It has a veranda used to impart blessings. The second one includes a throne hall and a small private apartment for the Pope. The third one is a chapel, which the Pope used only one to say Mass. They are real works of art, built regardless of expenses. The first carriage has a balustrade on both sides with gold-painted twisted columns. Above the balustrade, a frieze and a frame of oak and laurel leaves surmounted by flowers in chiseled copper with a pontifical coat of arms in the middle. Internally, the carriage is decorated with gildings and velvet, and its ceiling with a painted velarium sprinkled with stars. The throne carriage is connected to the first one by a small platform with railings and wrought iron gates. A crystal double-door gate enables access to the interior, decorated in the papal white and yellow colors. The material of the walls, the capitonné sofas, the throne and the curtains include gold and silver filaments. The throne was surmounted by a canopy and had a mirror behind. The chapel carriage is even more sumptuous. The rail enthusiasts from India may have felt my emotion in describing the 3 carriages. Their beauty is undeniable. I wish to underline that you, more than many others, are able to understand my feelings because you are lucky enough in India to own and manage some of the most astonishing heritage trains whose artistic value and decoration are indeed remarkable. The papal train was viewed as a real revolution. First, because train circulation was unheard of in the papal state. Second, because Pope Pius IX was a fan of railways. Contrary to his predecessor, Gregory XVI, who considered railways a devil's instrument, Pius IX was instrumental in planning the first railway lines in the papal state. It is worth mentioning that the papal train was meant to serve as a personality who was both a spiritual leader and a political figure. The fascination of the papal train is also connected to the fact that it represents the transition between ancient, and I mean imperial, that is Austro-Hungarian, or Tsarist, that is Russian, or Ottoman, or royal, horse-driven means of transportation, and modern technological ones. It is indeed a jewel, both for historians and for train buffs. It is unique, and anyone passing through Rome should consider paying the museum a visit. The fascination of viewing artifacts like these brings us to one of the most remarkable assets of an heritage railway museum, to offer the visitor a glimpse, or even better, to immerse him or her in the atmosphere of the time when that specific rolling stock was operated. It is really like finding oneself in a gigantic, real movie set. After the Italian museums, allow me now to mention just a few more railway museums in Europe. In Italy, I just mentioned 2 more, the Museo Ferroviario della Puglia and the Museo Ferroviario Piemontese. In Germany, the Rail Museum in Nuremberg and museums in Frankfurt, Berlin, etc. In the United Kingdom, National Railway Museum in York, Didcot Railway Centre, Kidderminster Railway Museum, London Transport Museum, National Tramway Museum in Critch, Museum of the Great Western Railway in Swindon, Glasgow Museum of Transport. In France, the Mulhouse Museum. In the Netherlands, Utrecht. In Belgium, Train World in Schepdaal, Brussels. In Switzerland, Odense Verkehrshaus in Lucerne. In Turkey, the Rami M. Koç Museum in Istanbul was founded in 1994 by a Turkish automotive tycoon, Rami M. Koç. The museum is fully devoted to the history of industry and transport. Rolling stock represents a big part of what it offers. Among the featured items are an Italian Fiat Litorina rail car, many historical pieces, and the carriage in which Kaiser Wilhelm II allegedly traveled to Constantinople in 1970. In the hot season, 3 narrow gauge locomotives, 2 of which are steam-powered, pull a train full of visitors along the shores of the Golden Horn. After Europe, I wish now to expand about museums in North America. The first one, the museum, by the way, the picture you see here of a big boy, and I am on top of it, which was a dream for many years of my life. So the Museum of the American Railroad in Frisco, Texas, was formerly known as the Age of Steam and Railroad Museum. It has more than 70 pieces of steam, diesel, passenger, and freight railroad equipment. It began in Dallas in 1963, and in 1986 has moved to Frisco. A strategic plan called Visions 2006 called for a comprehensive reorganization of the museum, including new facilities, new governance, and new programs. A G-scale model train layout opened in July 2018 in the Frisco Discovery Center next to the museum site. My good friend Bob Laprelle, CEO of the museum and present president of the Heritage Rail Association of North America, will talk at length tomorrow about the new museum under construction and all the aspects involved. I wish to mention a few other railway museums in North America. The Baltimore and Ohio Museum in Maryland, California State Railroad Museum, Sacramento, National Museum of Transport, St. Louis, Missouri, Colorado Railroad Museum, Denver, National Railroad Museum, Green Bay, Wisconsin, Railway Museum of British Columbia in Squamish in Canada, Expo Rail in Montreal, Canada, and the Museo Nacional de los Ferrocarriles Mexicanos in Puebla, in Mexico. Of course, I said before about museums in India, and so even if I'm sorry I'm not able because of time constraints to mention more than 6, I know you have many more valuable museums. I would like to mention the following: the National Rail Museum in New Delhi, the Rail Museum in Mysuru, Southwestern Railway Division of Indian Railways, the Howrah Rail Museum at Calcutta, the Chennai Rail Museum of ICF, Southern Railway Division of Indian Railways, the Kuch Bihar Rail Museum, Northeast Frontier Railway Division of Indian Railways, and of course, the Railway Heritage Park in Tinsukia, about which you just heard a very interesting conference. Among the extremely active members of WATTRAIN, we have some Australian friends, and not because of that, but because it is a fact. I wish to museum just 3 museums in Australia, but there are many more than the ones I will mention. I'm referring to the Workshops Rail Museum Ipswich in Queensland, to the National Rail Museum in Port Adelaide in South Australia, and the North South Wales Rail Museum in Thirlmere. Now, passing to Japan to cover another part of the world, allow me to mention the GR East Museum in Saitama, also referenced as Omiya, the Tsuyama Railroad Educational Museum in Okayama, the Uzui Pass Railway Heritage Park in Gunma, the Kyushu Railway History Museum in Fukuoka, and the Shikoku Railway Cultural Center in Ehime. Please excuse me if I selected just a few museums among the hundreds and hundreds that exist, but the time constraints did not allow me to offer more. Before my final remarks, I wish to briefly elaborate on something intangible but intimately connected with the HR museums: their power to make us dream and remember. In other words, the duty of memory. Locals and carriages are relics from the past. One can touch them, travel on board, feel the emotion, appreciate the smell of steam, hear the steam-related noises, imagine the feelings of the people on board in ancient times in all continents, but also think about the designers, the builders, the restorers, the drivers, the signalmen, the maintenance people, the line keepers, etc. And also of the drivers and the firemen on the footplate in all latitudes, by all temperatures and weathers. That is why, when I was ambassador of Italy to Bulgaria, I spent so much time on the footplate in steam locals after adequate technical preparation. That is also why, ignoring at the time so much about steam locals, I wrote for myself in 2010 a 60 pages text in Italian and English about those incredible contraptions, their history, their types, how they work, etc. And I shall not forget to say that I am also a collector of railway models. I own a few hundred pieces in H0 and LGB, which is G scale. By the way, respecting the duty of memory is exactly what I do with another hat I wear, that of photographer and memorialist of stranded shipwrecks on the coasts of dozens of countries everywhere in the world. I have not yet come to India. I would like to. Would anyone help me identify and locate stranded wrecks? Thank you for your help. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for your attention. Thanks again to Manikandam for his invaluable help. I look forward to your questions. Please enjoy the rest of this exceptional conference. All the best to you, to your organizations, to your families.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Stefano, for your short world tour of different museums all over the world, and also touching base on a couple of them. And I would also like to mention to the audience here that some of the photographs here have been taken by Stefano himself. And then that's why you may not find the photographs of all the museums that he had mentioned over his speech. And as far as some of the other museums are concerned, we were able to collate some of them which we felt were adequate and relevant for this presentation. So that clarification being said, so thank you very much. And then we will move on to the question and answer section. The first question that we had was that was asked by Mr. Jail Singh. So he was asking us whether an organization like RES can become a member of WATTRAIN.
All organizations related to heritage railways, museum associations, working places where exhibits are most welcome, like individuals also. Whoever is interested and whoever wants to do everything possible to keep the memory of that era. And I told you that I am dealing about shipwrecks stranded along the coasts. The duty of memory is the same. We have to keep in mind the importance of the hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of people who had the idea, financed, designed, built, maintained, drove those ships, those trains, those trams. Now we think that everything is made easier because there are planes and cars. If you ask a child, a young person, maybe he or she have traveled by plane, but never seen a train. which for us is incredible. I repeat, never seen a train, never seen a ship. So that is what we have to do for us, because we love them, but for future generations. Future generations will not be based only upon the value and speed of planes, of going to space, of that kind of things. It will be based on what we have achieved. When I say we, it is all our predecessors, wherever they happen to work. So yes, any association, entity, individual are most welcome to WATTRAIN. Thank you.
So the
Thanks,
reason
Stefano.
why I asked this question is that our society is a society of rail enthusiasts, or people whose hobby is the railways. We do not run a museum. We do not own a museum. We don't run a heritage railway. Is it possible for this society to become a member?
Yes, sir. Whoever is
Okay.
interested should connect with us, and they are most welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you. So moving on to the next question. So we do have a similar question. I mean, we do have another question from Mr. Singh. Are the museums in Europe primarily private or government run?
As far as I know, they are private, with contributions and help from government or local entities. So it is a dual hat they have. I think this is different from the United States, where they are mostly private, but it doesn't change much. The important thing is not how much they have into their finance assets at the end of the year. It's how many people, and young people, have been able to discover something which they do not see around them, because they just raise their eyes and see a plane. They look around and see cars, they see speed, but they ignore what is the past. So that is what we aim to do, to excite the interest of young generations, who in turn will be able to bring their children to see what trains were. And by the way, allow me to say hello to my good friend David, whom I saw around somewhere. Now he disappeared from the images, who is the president, or was the president of WATTRAIN. Thank you.
Okay. Thanks, Stefano. So moving on to the next question. So we have another question from our Indian participants here. So Anubhav has asked, is there any plan of WATTRAIN to partner or support Indian Railways to work together to the betterment of museums in Indian Railways?
Thank you, Mani. We have no plans for the moment, but whoever gets in touch with us, with me, we will be happy to do whatever is possible to offer our experience. When I say experience, I never did the addition of the numbers of decades behind us. But keep in mind that I am among the youngest members, apart from Mani. So if you add together all of us in many continents, including Latin America, you can imagine how much we have seen and how much we can try and offer if requested. So yes, we would be happy to offer our experience and capacity.
All right. Thank you. So moving on to the next question, Mr. Warren Miller has a question on, do you feel that the duty to memory suggests that exhibits should be shown in authentic condition and colors. Some museums tend to paint exhibits in bright but incorrect colors, or does this not matter?
Thank you, Warren. I feel that just the fact that people, persons, individuals, volunteers, entities, museums want to do something on exhibits which have suffered from years and decades of neglect must be appreciated and commended. Of course, authentic condition and colors is what I believe is the best. Also for one reason, that is the way younger generations will keep them in mind. If you show to a young person an old train, totally neglected, with its paint disappeared, with not in running conditions, they will not give any attention to it. If you see it in bright colors, and even if they might not be perfectly correct, I think it is much better. On the other hand, are we absolutely sure that what we offer as colors is wrong? Because maybe we did not have the exact conditions those trains, those carriages had 100 years ago. So I think that the effort must be commended for one reason, that they must be kept as best as possible and offer as much attraction to most people. And again, I refer to younger generations because we see them, we know them. Some of you, many of you have worked on them. We have traveled. Some of you have been on the footplace, some of us, I would say. But let's talk about younger generations. Thank you.
Okay. We do have another question. I think it may be very pertinent for us from WATTRAIN, Stefano. I don't know the name of the person. It only appears as iPhone. There are two questions, basically.
I see them. Yes, I read them. So what government or EU support to WATTRAIN? Zero. Why the insistence on coal-based operations? Coal-based operation because heritage railway are often, and I say often, but you will put the word you prefer, exhibited and used. So if we mention a steam loco, of course, we may go to alternative fuels, but still those machines were built for coal. So you can change the mechanics and use other means, but coal is basically what it's about. And you all know the efforts all over the world to have green economies, green everything. But if there is something which is used in transportation since decades, it should be coal. On the other hand, maybe one day they will prohibit fuel for ships. So what happens? We all have to go on ships with nuclear energy? You are kidding, or they are kidding. So that is why the insistence on coal-based operations, that for the moment, that is what is connected to heritage rail money.
Yeah, and if I may add to this point, Stefano, so based on different studies, the coal-based steam locomotives which are being operated, they contribute less than 1%. Maybe it's even in the decimal 1% of the total greenhouse gas emissions of multiple countries. So even considering the very minuscule contribution to GHG and the fact that our younger generation should know the way it operates and the feel of these old steam locomotive exhibits, I think the insistence on coal-based operations should be there. Maybe it can be a different form of coal, like biocoal, but the coal should be there. Thank you.
If I'm allowed to intervene,
Yeah.
I found that in all such conferences, seminars, meetings that we attend, one of the laments is that all rail enthusiasts, all people interested in the railways are people with gray hair. You don't find youngsters, people in their 20s and 30s.
No.
How do we go about attracting them? Yes, we can paint our locomotive red, blue, purple, anything, but will that attract him? How do we attract people to get interested in trains and railways?
Sure.
Even if you look at our society, the bulk of our members are people above 50. There are very few who are in their 20s and 30s. And this is in spite of the fact that till very recently, trains was the main mode of transportation in India. Even when North America and Europe were shifted to cars and planes, we were still working trains. We are carrying something like 25 million passengers every day today on trains. Yet, there is little interest in rail heritage. There is little interest in railways as a hobby. So how do we get the youngsters interested again? Not necessarily to travel by train, but to be interested in railways as a hobby. Maybe rail photography, maybe rail modeling, maybe rail, any aspect.
And that is exactly why we are trying to enlarge the number of entities and individuals who are interested in what we do, because through them, we can pass the word to other people who in turn next weekend will propose their family to go and visit a museum. And maybe one of the kids will start collecting. I did not have a model train when I was a kid. I started when I was 30. As I said before, I now have a few hundreds of models in H0 and in G, which is LGB. So, and from there, of course, that is only a detail, but that is just to say that we must do something for young people. We can do it. We have our newsletter. We have an excellent communication director, Peter Lewis, and he is perfectly able to act on what he understands and what he sees. He has a long experience in communications. So that is what we are trying to do. And we are the only association, the only entity which is active all over the world. You have regional ones, like in Europe, like in North America, like in Australia, but we are the one extending its interests all over the world. Of course, in some places, if you go to former Eastern Europe or former Soviet Union, it is much more difficult. You need to have passionate people. You don't need bureaucrats. And when I say this, I've been a bureaucrat myself for 40 years, so there is nothing against bureaucrats. But I know what a bureaucrat means, and I know what a non-bureaucrat can bring to any activity. And that is why volunteers are so extremely important. That is why I mentioned how many volunteers there are, for example, in Europe. I ignore their number in India, but I'm sure there are thousands. And that is where we have to extend our activity, our offer, because those volunteers are young, even if they are not today attending our conference. They have families, they have children, they are able to explain their child that the loco on which father worked for many years to restore it, and maybe his grandfather worked on it on the footplate, that is what made our countries what they are. Because none of our country could have existed without railways. None of our countries would have existed without the ships whose wrecks I am photographing on the shores all over the world. And by the way, I would like to thank Mr. Raghunandan, who very kindly offered me to locate shipwrecks by checking with your contacts. I cannot see you in the here on my photos on my
I think he's there.
on your.
Yeah.
But I would appreciate very much. We will be in touch. That is among the things I would like to go to, of course, even shipwrecks photographers have a morality and some ethics. I'm kidding myself now, in the sense that I do not go to places where they dismantle ships. So I do not go to Bangladesh or Pakistan just because they dismantle ships there, because those are not shipwrecks. I go where real shipwrecks are, the ones which have been left there by their sailors. So whenever you could find something in your country or in any other country, now that COVID is behind us, I would be very happy to accept your offer. Thank you.
Thank you, Stefano. I was about to bring that next once we finished our questions. So Mr. Raghunathan also stays in Bangalore, where I am based out of. So I can definitely forward his contact number to you and then arrange for an introduction. And then you can connect on photography of shipwrecks based out of India. And we'll be more than happy to welcome you to India to photograph not just your passion with the shipwrecks, but also the other stuff which you are interested in, basically your architecture, the monuments, and also railways. Last but not the least, railways. Yeah, we do have another question from Mr. Vikash Singh. He's asking about your favorite museum and why.
Yes, I saw the question. I'm sorry. In the same way that any of you who have children are not able to say which child is preferred, the same applies for all the more than nearly 500 shipwrecks I have seen around the world, and you can see them on my site. And the same applies to museums. Unfortunately, I have not been able to travel so extensively and define which ones I prefer. But I love all of them because all of them show passion. And without passion, nothing can be done in work, in volunteer work, in hobbies, whatever. So apart from the passion shown by the people who manage them today, there is the work of thousands of people who worked on those machines. So it is also the respect for that work. So my answer to Mr. Vikas Singh, your favorite museum and why, unfortunately, I have no answer. I know it is not acceptable.
But Stefano, you are a good diplomat.
It sticks after 40 years. But
Yes.
I'm sure that if I come to India, among the ones I will prefer, I am sure that there will be some in India, including the Tinsukia Museum, which I had the pleasure
But
of.
that happens to be my favorite
Right.
too.
Good.
In spite
Good,
of the
good.
National Rail Museum in New Delhi being much bigger, I prefer the Tinsukia Museum.
I take you on your word, and if I manage to find the money to come to India, I will be very happy to follow your advice. And I see here Mr. Apurva Bahadur asking, which railway museum has the best funding? I suggest you ask the same question tomorrow to Bob Laprelle, because he is a master in locating funding, private and public, and maybe it is easier for him because he lives in Texas, but in many places there is a possibility of finding money. It's, again, a question of organization, and I'm sure that all of you have shown such organizational skills, and with that you are able to impress people who have money, be it government, local, regional, or private. So that was the last question I saw.
We do have a lot of positive feedback to your speech, Stefano. So we have around 5 minutes. Perhaps I'll cover a crux of what was the feedback that we had received. And yeah, so Mr. Raghunandan again states that the quality of restoration that he saw in your photographs, particularly the fonts or the markings, are exactly how they used to be. And then Anubhav also mentions that the impeccable restoration seen on the slides is a sight to cherish throughout the world, and he's thanking you for this presentation. And yes, and we do have Mr. Saurya Basu mentioning that it's a superb presentation. And Mr. Shekhar Priyadarshi mentions that it was an excellent worldview of railways and museums. And yes, Mr. Himakar Tata, I hope I'm pronouncing it correctly, thanks you for providing a fascinating insight into the heritage of other railways. And he particularly references the Papal carriage, which was an eye-opener, and it was an excellent presentation packed with information. And yes, and considering the comments that we received on attracting more young people to the railway heritage. So Mr. Raghunathan mentions that in the RES conference 2 years ago, the best presentation was by a young restorer who works on reviving steam locos, who was in his early 20s. So we do have excellent examples of that. And of course, Mr. Warren Miller, I have a very specific mention to Mr. Warren Miller on this particular topic. He's talking about the 4 new oil-fired steam locomotives of the Nilgiri Mountain Railway, which was built only 10 years ago. So if you remember, Stefano, and to the wider audience here, we had covered the Nilgiri Mountain Railway in our newsletter. More specifically, we had also mentioned that they have a very active preservation and maintenance of steam locomotives, which was carried out. The oil-fired conversion was carried out at Golden Rock Workshop, and also the fact that they had manufactured a coal-fired steam locomotive from scratch, the Compound Class X steam locomotive built by Swiss Locomotive Machine and Fabric. So that was covered very detailed in our newsletter, and it was disseminated to our members all over the world. So the technical expertise which India has been presented to our members. So with that, I think we have only 3 more minutes. So I would like to thank, yes, Stefano, go ahead.
Thank you, Mani. I have one thing I would like to ask you to do. If it would be possible to have to collect all the questions so that we know and we can follow up if needed. And also, if you would be so kind to gather any other question which might come to you concerning WATTRAIN, so that we can really, let me be blunt, use this opportunity to offer as many people as possible in many continents what we do. And we are a unique organization. I insist, I stress this. We are not an organization which wants to impose its view in any way. We want to offer our expertise, our capacity in dealing with foreign governments, local, regional, municipalities, entities, to keep, to preserve, to protect, to enhance our heritage, railways, trams, tramways, whatever it is. And if anyone is interested in having a look, now I'm wearing my shipwrecks photographer hat. You might see it on www.stefanobenazzo, which is my name, .it for Italy. But that was a personal note just to show you that loving things of the past, like railways, extends to many others. So I see that Mani has just passed my site. I see a lot of things after IT, but
That's just
You-
an English translation, Stefano.
That's an English translation. Yes, but I'm sorry. As I am the one dealing with my site, I have not done a translation yet, but the photos speak by themselves. A good photo is enough without explanations. Thank you, Mani. Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, Mr. Singh. Thank you to everybody for having the patience of hearing me talk about our passion. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank
We'll
you.
also collate
Thank
the
you.
feedback. Thank you.